ever in the beginning of spring training with a guy you've signed, you never announce if it's a real problem, period. If it's a scrub who's a non-roster invitee and they have a bad bullpen, we once had a guy, Coca, who we signed, and we didn't know who he was. I didn't know who he was, but he was on the roster. He wasn't on the 40-man roster. We invited him to spring training and passed his physical, don't know how, and then they went to the six-pack, and he threw, and the guy was throwing like 70 miles an hour. And not that we're asking the players to throw 90 right out of the gates, but there was something clearly wrong with him, and we released him that day. We called him in and said, hey, sorry, see you later, because we don't want him to get hurt. First you say, are you healthy? Yes, I'm fine. Great, you're released. Because you don't want him to get hurt. Then you have to deal workers' comp and getting him healthy. So we just got rid of him immediately. But if it's a guy on a long-term deal, you're definitely not releasing Jacob deGrom, but you certainly are despondent. You're hoping that he's going to get 26 starts this year so he can match what he got over the last 2 seasons. And 26 starts for your number one starter means, wait for it, he's missed a month. An entire month. At least. So they go to the owner and they say, hey, we got a problem with Jake. No problem. Hold him back for 2 days, but make sure we announce that this is normal. This is fine. It's an overabundance of caution. I always like that. That's what. Do you remember those phrases? They were used by the Rangers. Do you remember during COVID, after the games started again in different leagues, and they would cancel games because one guy got the sniffles or one guy tested positive, who they'd come into contact with 3 days earlier at Scores, and the league would say,
green card, yellow,
out of an overabundance of caution, we will be postponing tonight's game. Well, talk about overabundance of caution.
Yeah,
that's the great word to use about Jacob deGrom. We're going to be watching this all season long. That's an injury. That's a distraction. Let's go down to Palm Beach with the Washington Nationals, who are dealing, obviously, with the loss of their owner. They're dealing with the reality that they're going to lose a hundo. They're dealing with the reality that the team is not sold yet. They're dealing with the contract that they want to close their eyes and make disappear, except Scott Boras keeps showing up with his hands out and saying, pay my main man, Steven Strasburg. I can't let a show go by without mentioning the injury of Steven Strasburg.
There you go.
Tip my cap to Scotty boy. The worst contract I've ever seen. It makes my worst contract look like the best contract ever signed by anybody. Strasburg is thrown off a mound. He's got the nerve thing again. He's hurt. He's done. He will never pitch again. He will not be in the big leagues, and he will keep collecting his $175 million. Distraction? Not really. Injury? For sure. So players all get to spring training. They're all excited. They're meeting the media. They're talking. You'd really talk to your players before the first workout. You pull a few aside.
No worries,
you know
bro.
the media you're going to talk to. Just make sure
I'm just
they're
listening
ready.
to like a podcast, boys. Honestly, I'm kind of just chilling
page.
today. I'm not really having a serious stream until like later tonight when I play with JarTVs.
Do you like the way your locker
Rhino
looks?
TTH, like all those guys, Cam Skull. Tonight when I play with them, I'll be having more of a serious stream and shit like that. But as of right now, boys, we're just playing Tarkov. We're hanging out.
Remember when Trevor Story got
so
signed?
The zombie
to that
stream
deal?
will come.
He signed a 6-year, $140 million deal, and the Red Sox hadn't done much, and you were all upset with Chaim Bloom and John Henry and Tom Werner. And I told you to slow your roll because they've won 4 World Series.
Whose podcast? It's just baseball. It's a baseball podcast.
So Trevor Story was one of the great free agents last year. Remember all those shortstops, Seager and Simeon, Lindor. So Story signs for $140 million with the Red Sox and then gets hurt. You're despondent. The team stinks. He's hurt again. He told the media, listen, I've got great news. In a best-case scenario, I'll see you in the second half. In a worst-case scenario, I'll see you next spring. No, Trevor, please. Don't say that. I mean, it's been announced. We know it, but we're trying not to repeat anything bad. That's a very good PR rule with players or with staff or with managers. When there is bad news, you dump it, you say it, and then you don't mention it again. I don't want to remind people. Trevor Story, all he should have been saying to the media is, listen, I am working hard to get back as quickly as possible to help this team get back to the playoffs. Period. Be done with it. Don't give me best case, worst case scenarios. Then we went over to the other guy with the Red Sox. Remember Chris Sale? Go back to a Nothing Personal episode. I bet you it's one of the first 50 episodes. Maybe even earlier than that. Chris Sale signed that huge contract with the Red Sox because all of you people in Red Sox Nation were apoplectic that he hadn't been re-signed, that he could become a free agent. And they gave him this huge deal for no particular reason because he wasn't gone from the Red Sox yet. And that deal has been an absolute stinker. But good news, he's back. Hopefully he's not punching anything or breaking ribs or falling or stepping in holes or doing whatever it is that Cespedes did. Remember that? That's a callback. That's an inside joke. There was a player named Jonas Cespedes who got hurt by stepping in a hole on his ranch trying to catch pigs. But anyway, Chris Sale was all excited. Remember, they won the World Series in 18, and he signed that contract because everyone was so excited. We got to bring him back. Damn. There's so much pressure, and they signed him. And then he got hurt.
Hope you feel better, bro.
And he's been hurt ever since. I don't think he pitched at all for them. Oh, God. So he said something that, I don't know. We try to, when you're talking to players, you know that there's going to be several things that are said that you don't want said. And you just hope.
Did you beat Hogwarts Legacy? Yeah, we crushed that game.
But in spring training, everyone's in the same place. The media doesn't have to travel. They're not tired. They get to go out every night.
We crushed it.
They show up at the facility every morning. They've got to fill column inches, and they've got to tweet, and they've got to find things to say every day. So as a PR department, you're in a front office, you're trying to lead them in the direction of positive stories. Look at what's going on here. All of our 8-second basemen are working out well, or our off-season acquisitions. Look at how good they look. You're trying to pitch them ideas. Look at these guys; they're best friends playing video games every day.
Is there anything to do once to make West complete? Bro, there's a shit ton of stuff.
Keep the bad quotes to a minimum. Chris Sale was talking about he nicked his pinky, broke his wrist.
There's a shit ton of stuff.
I could have been in a Russian prison for 10 months. Calling back Brittany Griner. How fun would that have been? He was trying to give everyone perspective. One of the things that's very important to do when you are a player or when you're a front office is to be very careful. Because I couldn't agree with Chris more, and Chris is one of the best guys in baseball. There are people who are very angry about his contract, angry that he hasn't played, angry at Chaim Bloom, angry at the Red Sox, wondering whether or not they're going to get out of the basement this season in a very tough AL East. And I've always talked about perspective.
Yo, dude, that sucks. You know, I hope you feel better, my man.
Saying we're going into battle, going to war. There's a real battle out there. I like perspective. And the problem is, I can't dictate to my customers what they deem as important. I can't dictate to them what they deem as their own internal perspective. And I tried for so long. Because there's no doubt that there are fans who react in a way that is disproportionate to what's happening, right? It's a loss. And we see this with players.
I'll let loose,
when a player makes a mistake and all of a sudden they're getting death threats or hate mail. And I have tried to explain to people about wins and losses and perspective and emotion. But I'll tell you, I have made, if I had to calculate it, I would say I've made zero progress. I would say with social media and people having cyber courage and keyboard courage, that the amount of perspective out there is pretty bad. Pretty missing. But don't worry, Red Sox fans. You may have Chris Sale back to start the season, but I'll tell you what you won't have is Chris Sale for an entire season because he's an injury waiting to happen. So let's go to Arizona. and see if there's any distractions out there. What do you do if you're the Anaheim Angels of Los Angeles? You know Ohtani's going to meet the media. You know Trout's going to meet the media. You know this is going to be dogging you all season long. You have an impending free agent.
I hope you get better. Ever considered streaming it? My favorite game at the moment?
Judge look like Carl Pavano
in terms of their free I don't know. If I'm playing it, I want to play with my friends.
Carl,
you know what I mean?
I love you. I love Carl. Carlapalooza.
I wouldn't want to play it just solo because it's very immersive and like RPG style kind of game. Or not even
Have you ever heard of
RPG,
Carl
but...
Pavano?
All right, let me turn down this fucking
deal with the Yankees. You have? All right, I feel a little better about that.
All right, let me turn that down.
12 when he signed? Can't even talk about that. So when you've got the #1 free agent in history and he is heading out the door, in the door, maybe getting a $500 million contract, you've got to figure out what is going to be your plan. So I would go to Shohei Ohtani and say, listen.
Communication with squad is a must. Yeah, no, it really is in that game. In that kind of game, it is.
Right off the top, right in spring training, and then I want you to say that I will not be discussing this again for the rest of the season. You can ask me 1,000,000 times. I'm going to answer it the same way. I'm not discussing it anymore. You can answer right now you want to win. You can answer right now that you love Artie Moreno. You can answer that you hate Artie Moreno. You can answer that you don't like Mickey Mouse. I don't care, but answer it right now. Everything. If we win the World Series, I'll stay. If we don't get to the ALCS, I'll leave. Whatever. I love you, Steve Cohn. I don't care. But then stop it. Because your teammates don't want to hear it. The fans don't want to hear it anymore. What's worse than having a countdown to despise?
I haven't played it that much. No, I've only played it a few times. I've only ever played it a few times. Not like extensively like you would have.
Ohtani leaves the Angels. 195. Who's up next? 194. You're not going to do it that way. Then you got to go to Mike Trout and say, Mike, you committed to us. Media's going to ask you. Here's what I want you to say. Are you willing to say this? I want you to make yourself look foolish. And I want you to tell the media that I'm going to do everything I can to keep Shohei Ohtani here. Do you mind doing that? Well, why would I say that? I mean, of course I'm going to do that, but you understand that I have no say because I'm not going to give back any of the money I signed. Artie Moreno already has a payroll over $200 million. We completely suck, and we haven't been in the playoffs in, how many, 10 years. We've got the longest streak of no playoffs. I've never won a goddamn playoff game in my life. Series.
So this to the mechanic. Have you finished Hogwarts Legacy? Yeah, I crushed that game, boys. I crushed Hogwarts Legacy.
I don't want to be here, but I love my family and I love where I live. I've got the great gated community. I'm right within spitting distance of Space Mountain. I can quickly fly to Japan if I want. I'm coming up with reasons for Shohei to stay. I can't think of any. If Artie Moreno bids more money than the Dodgers or the Mets, then Shohei will stay in Anaheim. Now, Shohei could tell you during his opening press conference, I want to win. He's told you that. I want to see what happens during the year. Whatever he's going to say, just say it. But don't make Mike Trout say, I'm going to do everything I can to keep Shohei. What does that mean, Mike? That means you're going to focus every at-bat more than you normally would have? It means you're going to tell your teammates, stop sucking? It means you're going to try to go full Tanya Harding on everyone in the Houston lineup?
All right, we gotta figure some shit out here, boys.
That DeGrom never pitches and that Seattle takes a step backwards. What's your exact plan?
We have got to plan an attack, right?
Can you take him to dinner? What? It's ridiculous. There is not one player I've ever seen leave or stay because they had a teammate who said, hey, will you stay? Will you leave? That's not how it works. In the NBA, there may be some recruiting. Let's all go to South Beach together. But it's not like Mike Trout is going to be able to convince Shohei Ohtani of anything. So don't make him say that. Just makes him look bad. Distraction. Cut it off at the head. We're still going. There's still more.
Fuck,
then we go to Pittsburgh. Distractions are what you need. When your team's going to be bad... One of the things,
dude, I can't even take shit out of my stash, bro.
Let's give you something to think about. That has nothing to do with wins and losses.
I gotta sell this gun and here, we'll man. Fuck it.
We're gonna have this great promotional schedule. We're gonna backload it because we think we're not gonna be good. We're going to make sure that when we give out a team calendar, that the guys that are being traded are in the beginning of the season. The guys who we're going to keep are toward the end of the season in terms of the months on the calendar. We're going to pay attention to how we do our bobblehead because we don't want to do a bobblehead of a guy we brought in who we think we're going to trade at the deadline. If so, do that bobblehead before the deadline.